As our living planet drifted on the sea of eternity, soon after the dawning of the 20th century, the winds of change began to blow. Events were to take place which would change the course of mankind forever. The atomic age had arrived. As man detonated weapons of immense power, lights started to appear in the sky in a way that suggested that something was following the course of events. The shattering thought imposed itself that we were perhaps not the only inhabitants of the universe. Since the beginning of civilization, we had been watching the stars, never dreaming that they, in turn, might be watching us. History was about to change.
Because these lights appeared suddenly in the sky over Washington on July 20th, 1952, moving from the White House to the Capitol, hundreds of people witnessed the extraordinary event, and it left them stunned. The lights instantly jumped from one position to another. They were also observed by high military officials who knew what the lights were trying to say. The public had never seen anything like this, whereas the military had already a long history of involvement with these alien visitors, but had kept it from the public. An immediate emergency meeting was called to formulate a plan to divert public attention away from the occurrences. From that day on, it was decided to place the subject under the highest classification of security. Then came the first announcement to mislead the public made by Chief of Air Intelligence, Major General John Sanford.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
From that day on, the biggest secret of the century began. How did it all start? After the first atomic bomb was detonated, more tests were made of the effects on the environment and human subjects to gauge the degree of contamination unleashed. No knowledge of the devastating long-term effects existed at this time. Here in New Mexico, an army base close to a small town called Roswell became the focus of attention on July 2, 1947, when Bill Brazel, a farmer, found a crashed disc-shaped craft on his land. The military arrived on the scene and quickly isolated the spot when they found debris scattered over a wide area. They also found 4 dead humanoid alien bodies who had been ejected from the craft. Because of many recent UFO sightings by the military, they accepted the existence of visitors from outer space who obviously possessed a technology which was far beyond our understanding. Now, for the first time, they had tangible evidence and were eager to learn its secrets. Roswell was the home of the 509th Bomber Wing, the sole American atomic bomber group. Major Jesse Marcel, an Army intelligence officer, was engaged on the recovery operation and asked Walter Haught, the Army Public Relations Officer, to prepare a story for the local newspaper.
He told me to prepare a release with basically the information that he gave me over the phone. When it was done, to take it into community and hand deliver it to the 4 news media we had in Roswell at that time, which is what I did.
The story was published in the local paper. The news was also prepared to be aired by the local radio, but Judd Roberts, the radio station manager, was warned not to broadcast it. Sorry.
The question that we ran into is the very next morning, some friendly person, probably from Clinton Anderson's office, called us from Washington and said, we understand that you have some information, and we want to assure you that if you release it on this matter, because it's not supposed to be released, it's very possible that your license could be in jeopardy, and so we suggest that you not do it. And he said, when I mean in jeopardy, like maybe 3 days.
Preparations were made at Roswell Army Base for the transport of the wreckage. Robert Shirkey witnessed the secret handling of the parts.
They came in the front door, straight down the hallway, and right out onto the ramp to climb into the airplane. And these were the people that were carrying parts of the crashed flying saucer at that time, UFO today, that I got to see. And that was the only thing I got to see. And it was very short, very quick. Colonel Blanchard, in order to get out of their way, had backed into the doorway of the ops office. And I stepped up to him and I said, "Colonel, turn sideways. I want to see too."
On instructions from the Pentagon, Thomas Jefferson DuBose and General Ramey created a cover story saying the crashed object was a weather balloon.
But we used that in order to assuage the curiosity of the press.
The wreckage was loaded back onto an aircraft and flown out under cover of great security and secrecy to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The pilot kept silent for several years, but informed his wife after the story appeared in a newspaper.
I guess now that they're putting in the paper, I can tell you about this. I wanted to tell you for years. He said, "I want you to read this article because it's a true story." And I not only know that it's true, but I'm the pilot who flew the wreckage of the UFO to Dayton, Ohio.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was considered the most technologically advanced research center in the United States. The wreckage of the Roswell crash was dismantled for analysis. The matter was considered of such importance that the orders came directly from President Truman. Under the cover of the CIA, Truman created a group called Majestic 12 for dealing with and covering up all information about UFOs. President Truman gave the task of handling UFOs only to the highest-ranking generals. After the Roswell crash, a special group of scientists was formed and facilities built to be prepared to deal with any further UFO crashes which would occur. Wendell Stevens was a lieutenant colonel in technical intelligence in the U.S. Air Force.
Now having an extraterrestrial vehicle and some bodies in their hands, didn't know when the next one would come down, where they came from, what they were going to do about it. There were a lot of unanswered questions. And the United States was in a turmoil at the time administratively because we were shifting from a war economy and a military-industrial command structure to a civilian structure. So the military was still dominant, and they wanted to keep control of this until they knew what was happening. So they created, and remember, General Marshall was our Secretary of State at the time. He was a five-star general. These people selected certain representatives from the military-industrial complex that they controlled, generals and admirals and certain scientists that worked with the military and worked with industrial planning. These men were designated as a task force to take charge of any event that followed. And one did. Almost a year later, on the 25th of March of 1978, the next one came down, 1948, the next one did crash, and it came down under observation by radar, so that we knew where it landed at the time that it struck the ground, and a helicopter was over it in less than an hour. It reported what it observed, and the plan generated by these people from the military-industrial complex after the Roswell crash was immediately put into place. All of the generals and admirals and advisors and scientists were contacted and ordered to proceed to a base in Colorado, where they were picked up and driven to the crash site. Now all of these men have gone to the scene to see for themselves what an alien vehicle looks like, and they were going to advise General Marshall directly, who was controlling everything from a remote position from telephones, on how to proceed. And when an operation is that big, you can't cover everything up. We discovered that the owner of the property where the vehicle came down was arrested in his house with his family, and they were kept in the house for 4 days, not allowed to go outside or anything. All the roads in the area were blocked. All access was closed. People that lived close enough to know something about it were kept in their houses. Now, if it never happened, then this evidence wouldn't exist. But now we are finding solid evidence that something strange did happen and that these events actually took place. Then we found people who observed the recovery of the craft from a distance, that saw the task force moving across off roads over country to a secure military facility at Los Alamos. And with these leads, we were able to turn up other witnesses, all of whom had been sworn to secrecy by their superiors at the time they participated in these events. And only a few of them would talk to us, and only on condition that they not be identified because of their vulnerability. What happens in a case of violation of security oaths of this nature, they could lose all pay and allowances due or ever to become due. They could be imprisoned. They could be fined a lot of things that none of them could stand.
Through Secretary of State General Marshall, the security of the UFO situation was intensified. A closer relationship developed between the military and Majestic 12. As time passed, the power of Majestic 12 grew stronger. Virgil Armstrong was an intelligence officer with the CIA and worked with highly classified assignments. He retired with the rank of major.
I received documents which said that a UFO had landed in the middle of White Sands, New Mexico proving grounds, and that this object was inert, was under surveillance, and would be kept under surveillance until they could determine whether it was hostile or friendly. It later turned out that it was friendly in that the occupants were dead, and when we got aboard, there were 5 bodies. The bodies were diminutive in size, in other words, 3.5 feet. The largest one was just under 4 feet. 2 of them were obviously the commanding officers because 2 of them wore epaulets on their shoulders. Later turns out that they were all male. When we flew them back to Wright-Patterson, of course, the examination, physical examination, and the autopsy, of course, revealed that they were indeed all male.
From descriptions given by several witnesses, the aliens have very large eyes, a small nose, and a small mouth. They are usually about 3 feet 6 inches in height and have no body hair.
Now, consider, if you will, the position of the United States government at this time. They proudly thought of themselves as the most powerful nation on Earth, having recently produced the atomic bomb and won World War II with it. They had built a jet aircraft that exceeded the speed of sound in flight, or would, in October of '47. They had built bombers with intercontinental range that would carry weapons of enormous destruction. Now, imagine what it was like for these same leaders, all of whom had witnessed the panic of the Orson Welles broadcast in the War of the Worlds in 1938. Thousands of Americans panicked at a realistically presented invasion of Earth. But imagine their horror as they actually viewed the dead bodies of the real aliens. Imagine their shock as they tried to determine how these saucers were powered and could discover no part even remotely similar to components they were familiar with. No cylinders, no pistons, no propellers, no vacuum tubes. It's only when you fully understand the overwhelming helplessness the government was faced with in the summer of 1947 can you comprehend their perceived need for a total, thorough, and sweeping cover-up to include the use of deadly force.
President Truman ordered a heightened level of security after the capture of a live alien from a UFO which had crashed. Because of the ever-increasing numbers of UFO sightings at the time, it was decided to create a project called Blue Book, which was designed to suppress public knowledge and create an atmosphere of ridicule around the subject of UFOs. Professor J. Allen Hynek was a professor of astronomy and an astronomical advisor to the United States Air Force on their UFO educational program.
And I know the job they had. They were told not to excite the public. Don't rock the boat. And I saw it in my own eyes happen that whenever a case happened that they could explain, which is quite a few, they made point of that and let that out to the media. Things that the cases that were very difficult to explain, they would jump handsprings to keep the media away from it. For they had a job to do, to, whether rightfully or wrongly, to keep the public from getting excited.
I happened to see flying saucer on several occasions on the radar. I even intercepted with 4 jets in '55, and it was clear to me that the saucers we intercepted could hear what I told the pilots, because they reacted on my instructions to the pilots. It was one day when one of my people in the radar called me and said, "Major," I was captain at that, "Captain, we have something on the screen which passes with a speed of 18,000 kilometers per hour. Impossible. Nothing could fly with that speed. I went out there, yes. They were passing with 18,000 kilometers per hour. All of a sudden, after some while, they did not pass anymore. They were stationary around the field. And they came and they left without we could see it. All of a sudden they were there. All of a sudden when the sweep came around, they were gone. I contacted the operations officer and the station commander. They both came out and they wouldn't believe me. I said, "Give me 4 aircraft and I'll intercept them." Okay. Sometimes there were about 20 objects around the field, and sometimes we were down to a few. It was fog, and therefore a lot of people afterwards said, "Oh, it was inversion," but it was not. It's proven afterwards it could not be inversion, which is a meteorological phenomenon. So at 11 o'clock, I had 4 jets at the runway, and at 11 o'clock, the fog lifted so we could take off. And I ordered the 4 jets to take off. In that moment, there was 12 objects around the field. And when I said you are cleared for takeoff to intercept unidentified flying objects, 10 of them went away. Right when the sweep came back, there was only 2 left. One 10 miles north of the field, one 15 miles south of the field. I sent the 2 aircraft to the north and the 2 aircraft to the south. 2 aircraft to the north came first, and I said, your boogie, which is the object, is 12 o'clock straight ahead. 12 o'clock, distance 5 miles, altitude unknown. Do we have it in sight? Gone. Came the next one. When it came up, I said, your boogie is 12 o'clock, range 5 miles, altitude unknown. Do we have it in sight? Gone. So it was clear they could hear what I said.
But while the visitors monitor our every move with their superior technology, being technically advanced does not always ensure their own safety. This was proved by the UFO crash in the Kalahari Desert in 1989. One of the most documented cases of all time referred to a 60-foot wide spacecraft which was forced down on the border of South Africa. This craft impacted with the desert at high speed, causing a crater 450 feet in diameter and 36 feet deep. Official military documents reveal that the craft entered South African airspace at 1:45 p.m. on the 7th of May 1989 and was intercepted by 2 Mirage jet fighters. Because the craft failed to respond to communication, one of the fighters was ordered to attack the craft with an experimental laser cannon. This caused the craft to lose altitude and crash.
After the craft was retrieved, it was removed to a secret Air Force base. And on arrival at this base, it was found a door had partially opened in the side of the craft. Hydraulic pumping gear was brought to the scene and the door was forced open. When this was done, 2 aliens staggered out of the craft, and it was found that one appeared to be seriously injured. They were immediately arrested and removed to a medical centre, where a medical team was sent in to try to assist. The authorities at the scene entered the UFO, and hieroglyphics were found inside the machine, alien hieroglyphics of course, and various items of electronic equipment were also removed from the craft. The retrieval team from America arrived eventually, and the object plus the aliens were eventually taken by C-5 Galaxy transporters back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where further analysis was taken on.
When the military entered the craft, they quickly removed portable equipment and instruments, some of which were considered useful as potential weapons. This was not certain at the time, but was clarified after scientific investigation. Also found aboard the craft were a series of hieroglyphics, which indicated that the aliens had a written form of communication. The writing gave the impression of an alien alphabet, but it is not known if any of the scientists present were able to understand its meaning. Data found on the craft were stored on a system of silicone slides. It was obvious to everybody at the site that they were dealing with a very advanced technology, including the propulsion system. As more and more alien technology comes into the possession of our scientists, more understanding is being gained about the physics involved in producing propulsion systems capable of taking man deep into space.
The American Naval Deep Space Command, who also call themselves the Guardians of the High Frontier, are responsible for the location and identification of all objects in space around Earth. It's their claim that they can track and identify an object as small as a football at a distance of 30,000 miles. They refer to unrecognized tracks as unidentified orbiting objects and have been known to locate up to 6,000 of these in a 3-month period. Their area of responsibility lies outside the Earth's atmosphere. Below this level, the monitoring of the sky is taken over by NORAD, which is the North American Air Defense Network. Larger radio telescopes are on station throughout the world. They can scan the heavens to distances of hundreds of light years. This network of space surveillance ensures that any object heading towards the Earth can be tracked from a vast distance. As an object approaches, it is monitored throughout its journey. If any object should land or crash on Earth, the contact point is known immediately, and quick response teams swiftly arrive on the scene. This network was created after the Roswell incident, and since that time has developed into a sophisticated search and retrieval operation. Quick response teams are located in strategic positions throughout the world. Once there, they isolate the area and ensure that the public is kept unaware of sensitive incidents.
All over in NATO, they are interested. It's generals and colonels. The Americans are interested. The English are interested. Everybody knows about it. I was one in Wiesbaden with one of the squadrons down there, and I worked with a colonel. And one afternoon, I was going to nearby town. I don't remember the name. And I went to the office in civil clothes to pick up something, and he was sitting there. "Hey, Major," he said, "where are you going?" "I'm going to city." "What is that?" He pointed. I had my badge here with a flying saucer on my blue jacket. I said, "What?" "That, damn it, that." I said, "Nothing. It's a flying saucer." I said, "It couldn't be. You Americans have proven they don't exist." "Shut up," he said. He took the telephone and rang. "Jack, Pete, come on down." And in a sudden, we had 5 officers and himself. And we talked for 3 hours. And they knew exactly as much as I did. So everybody knows about it. And it is not illegal. And you are not disliked. I have talked with generals for hours, not on my purpose. They asked me to talk with them about it. They have received my magazine, UFO Contact, for years. So they are interested, but since the public opinion is secrecy, they can't go any further.
Although many years have passed since the beginning of the UFO era, the veil of secrecy has remained to keep the public uninformed. Despite the suppression of information, millions of people throughout the world are still seeing and reporting the presence of UFOs in our airspace. And many more millions are now firm believers in the presence of extraterrestrial flying machines. They know that UFOs exist.
I think what has happened over the years, the government has lied so much that they have painted themselves into a corner, and it's almost impossible for them to tell the truth today.
The biggest secret in the history of mankind, and the government is not going to let this out. There is no way to get anything out under the Freedom of Information Act.
In Russia, the subject of UFOs is now out in the open. Marina Popovich is a retired Russian cosmonaut and fighter pilot. During her military career, she was twice awarded her country's highest military order, Hero of the Soviet Union. She is now one of Russia's leading UFO researchers.
10 years ago, people only made jokes about this subject. Now the attitude to UFOs is very positive. The majority, 80%, think there is extraterrestrial intelligence and that this intelligence is trying to establish mutual contact with us. Now cosmonauts and pilots are more willing to report their contacts with UFOs when they have taken place.
Unlike the rest of the world, the Soviet Union has an openness about the subject of UFOs. They even have a monthly television program devoted entirely to it. In the near future, university courses will also be available to study the subject. Several Soviet generals have already stated that there is no question as to what UFOs are. We know they are alien spacecraft.
But at the Center for UFO Studies, we have a computerized data bank that now has more than 75,000 UFO reports on it. And what is even more interesting, they come from, by latest count, from 133 countries. When you start reeling off the countries, it sounds like a roll call at the United Nations. And even more interesting than the just numbers themselves don't mean so much, but the thing that finally convinced me that we were not dealing with nonsense is basically the caliber of the witnesses. Many of the reports are made by highly responsible people, impeccable integrity, people in technical training, air traffic controllers and military and commercial pilots. Finally got to the point, and it took me quite some time. I finally got to the point, however, where I simply said, I can't continue to call these people deluded or nuts. They are seeing something. Something is real.
The late J. Allen Hynek was an astronomer, just like I am. His background and mine are very similar. He was for many years a professor of astronomy, and so was I. And what Hynek said was, UFO research is leading us kicking and screaming into the science of the 21st century. Like Hynek, I sought to debunk the reality of UFO phenomena, and like him, discovered just the opposite.
Technology has advanced rapidly over the past 50 years for all the world to see. But in secret locations, amid tight security, the true advance of technology is hidden from public knowledge. From one such location came the stealth bomber. This futuristic aircraft is the only type known which has the ability to fly into radar-protected areas unobserved, almost without sound, to perform whatever task is necessary. The technology used in the production of the aircraft is a giant leap forward from conventional technology, and the question has to be asked, where did it come from? At one super-secret US government test facility situated in the Nevada desert, strange glowing lights are regularly seen performing aerobatic displays which are far beyond the capability of our known aircraft. They seem to be intelligently controlled. Can this be yet another example of some secret, very advanced technology, or are the authorities hiding some exotic foreign contrivance? Here at Area 51, also known as Dreamland, is the most highly protected and secret facility in the whole of the United States. Bob Lazar, a physicist, worked on special projects within this complex and felt compelled to reveal what he saw.
They are actively and have in their possession alien spacecraft, and they are actively undergoing analysis and flying them. They set up and produce their own gravitational field. Just as the Earth holds all matter down, they produce that same field, but out of phase, and it repels itself. The effects that can cause, the way in which everything operates is by all intents and purposes, magic. I mean, it is so far beyond our level of technology.
Why is such technology available only to the few and not to the whole of mankind? Have we the right to know? Are we ready for it yet? Or is the race for technological advantage more important?
Why keep a secret about probably one of the most important events in history, that there's been contact from an alien civilization? It's a significant event in history, more significant than anything.
With the tremendous distances involved, travel to the stars would seem impossible. But with man's endeavor and resourcefulness, these problems will be overcome as they always have been in the past. Scientific estimates tell us that there will be a breakthrough in space travel in the near future. When the boundaries of distance break down, the Earth will become our home, the universe our world.
From a point of physics, there are possible models today which may enable shortcuts in the space-time continuum. One of these shortcuts may be black holes. Black holes are the remainder of very large stars which have collapsed to a so-called singularity. And when stars do collapse to a singularity, they leave a tunnel, a gravitational tunnel behind, a rotating tunnel. And in this tunnel, space and time has a completely different meaning than to the normal usage that we make of space and time. Thus, in a tunnel, the so-called Einstein-Rosen bridge, time runs backwards. So a spacecraft which would dive into such a tunnel would move forwards in space and backward in time.
When we talk about hyperspaces and opening up the number of dimensions, and if we were to build a vehicle, if our science has progressed to this point, our technology, the applied science, if we develop a vehicle that is capable of doing that, traveling across the universe is not traveling through one space. It's flipping into these other spaces where the other one is only a short space away, a few inches away. And so you're talking about flipping rather than going like an arrow through a space-time or a bullet. You simply flip and flip back, and there you are. And so with the control of flipping, you could flip from here, and then you could flip up into the third or fourth dimension higher than this 3. And you could flip back into this dimension, this space-time, only you could flip several galaxies away. You could jump between galaxies.
The third possibility may be dematerialization. Science fiction authors have always mentioned this possibility, and although this may be utopia to us today, sometime in the future it may be possible to dematerialize a spacecraft into pure energy and then beam this spacecraft, the speed of light, to another solar system where it would materialize again, reassemble again, thus bridging these vast distances.
If we have a hyperspatial model, then simply by turning in another direction, a right angle, we would lose one dimension. When we turn 3 right angles, we lose all 3 dimensions. And that would be called full dematerialization. As far as we're concerned, when you turn 1 dimension, you would have lost one dimension, your length, and so you would appear to be a flat plane. You would appear to be a light form. By the way, some 83% or so of the UFO phenomena are just lights at night anyway. Most researchers throw those away. Those are the interesting cases. And particularly interesting are the cases where the light forms materialize into material forms and then dematerialize back into light forms and then fade away. And what I maintain is that you're looking at that phenomenon when you're seeing that. Now, that can be described mathematically, but that phenomenon of the hyperspatial aspects of it does exist, and you can show it. And I printed a photograph that showed the stars right through a dematerializing so-called spaceship. And so you do meet that format, and that is part of the phenomena.
If NASA has its way, many of the next generation will be residents of Mars, and the move towards this has already begun with the development of a space station. This was the essential first step towards making man a citizen of the universe.
What is really the long-range purpose of the space station? And we have worked on that question for a long time in NASA to look at long-range goals beyond the moon, beyond Mars even. And as we develop the space station itself will be used as a test bed, as a laboratory to test new technologies. And you need space to develop those technologies. As long as we are still on Earth, we can just talk about it. The question of which technology to use for this new, what we call the Space Exploration Initiative, that's the name, SEI, Space Exploration Initiative. What technology to use in the area of propulsion or life support or materials and structures and power and communications is being analyzed and investigated by NASA right now. And we're doing it in a number of categories. We're looking at present-day technologies, tomorrow technologies, and advanced technologies.
There are a number of models which are feasible for interstellar or even intergalactic travel. Nevertheless, we must be clear about one point. There may be so many possibilities we can't even think of. So at the moment we have theoretical models, but a highly advanced civilization, another solar system, much older than we are, may have discovered fantastic ways of traveling among the stars. And for them it may be like traveling from London to New York, traveling from Epsilon Eridani to the solar system.
The human race is producing more problems than it is solving. A change of direction is necessary to guarantee a safe transition into the future.
They are here to warn us. They started this program a couple of thousand years ago. They are very highly technical and spiritual advanced. These people have a technique that they can foretell development in cosmos for centuries. And they knew thousands of years ago what were going to happen on Earth. So they prepared for that situation. And we go forward to our time. Now they are here in our atmosphere in large numbers. They have always been here, but now they are here in large numbers to look over what we are doing, simply because they know that we'll kill ourselves. In many ways, if we don't push the button, we'll be killed by poison. If we don't kill each other by poison, we'll kill each other by too many people.
Energy is the lifeblood of civilized society, but it's also a tool that has to be controlled.
They are flying on what we call free energy. They take it out of cosmos and fly on it. And you could do the same with your boat, your car, your machinery. Everything on Earth could be completely free. Do you think that the oil companies and the coal companies and the atomic and so on and so forth would accept it? Never.
Despite our problems, we have gained a new conception of cosmic energy.
It turns out the universe is filled with energy, mind-boggling amounts of energy. As we like to point out, 1 cubic centimeter of vacuum, according to modern physics, can be calculated to have energy that can produce more mass than is in the observable universe. There's plenty of energy in the pure raw vacuum. We need to find a little process to get just a little bit of that, even the most inefficient process imaginable. 10 to the minus 80th, for example, is a great efficiency for this, and we can do that. The point is, we do not live in a closed system. That's the old physics. The new physics, since quantum mechanics, the vacuum is a source of energy, but it's a peculiar kind of energy. Let me explain the peculiar kind. When a bird flies in and sits on a power line, he sits on a very high potential, but between his 2 feet, he has no potential difference, no voltage. And so even though from the line to the ground, it may be 100 million volts, to use a theoretical figure or hypothetical figure, the little bird can sit very happily with his feet on this supposed 100 million volt line, and he has no volts across his body. He's very happy and doesn't even know it. Let him touch one of his feet to the slightest thing that has the slightest difference there, and he'll fry to a greasy spot. Now, in the vacuum, we have the same thing. We have an extremely high potential or charge of the vacuum, but we're immersed in the vacuum. And so the question is, we are like the little bird. Normally what we put in the vacuum, we don't have any difference between two pieces of our machine, so we can't get a current. An analogy I use of tapping a paddle wheel in the river, what we tap the energy from is the current of the river, not the pressure in the water. And so our problem is to find a way to tap the pressure, so to speak, rather than the flow, or to convert the pressure into a flow. That can be done, and we can tap the inexhaustible energy that's in the vacuum, and it has been done. And when we do that, we can get plenty of clean, free electric power, right, straight from the vacuum itself. So, do I believe in free energy? I can prove conclusively that the energy is there. Nature has been very kind. We are free to do anything that we are smart enough to discover how, but we've got to use our brain and our mind to discover how. But the mechanism is there for us to do it. I fully believe that. And inventors I work with, I will state point blank, at least, two of the very brilliant inventors I work with have produced free energy devices that are real and do work, and I personally have measured and dealt with the devices. They're real, they work, it can be done. And so it's an energy which has the aspect of restoring the biosphere and restoring life. For example, it's clean, so you wouldn't have all the pollutants from burning fuels and so forth, and for the nuclear byproducts and so forth. It's very clean fuel. You have absolutely nothing left but just energy. And you can transform it from either negative to positive. If you need the form of positive energy, you can do that. And you can transform it back to negative, and you can reach a very nice energy balance in nature. It has some other very positive benefits that don't show at first glance. The Earth, Sun, and Moon are connected not only by radiation of the normal electromagnetic energy, the external scattering stuff, but the half that's left out, the internal hidden energy. If you pollute one part of this system, the pollution feeds and spreads to the whole tri-system. Literally, we are polluting not only the Earth presently, but we are also polluting the Moon and the Sun in the scalar components. And that's what is gradually being radiated back to us. And so the very vital part of the energy that living systems have to have continually to be living systems and maintain their life is slowly being affected. And of course we need to clean that act up right away, because that's the worst kind of pollution we can possibly have.
Earth, the gem of the cosmos, a living, breathing miracle of creation, the home of mankind, a partnership of dependency and loyalty to each other. The passing of time saw man forget his loyalty. He began to poison and suffocate his planet because of his growing need for power to fuel his technology. A scientist of great wisdom and vision, Nikola Tesla, foresaw this danger and offered the world his discovery of the magic wave as pollution-free energy. His offer was rejected.
Tesla gave you multi-phase power, he gave you AC power, the practical transmission of electrical power, the rotating electromagnetic field that made motors and generators possible. And so he literally helped you bring in the electrical 20th century. Had it not been for Nikola Tesla, your cities would still be dark, you still would not have electric power, and you'd still be struggling around in the dark. So yes, Nikola Tesla was important to us. Had we listened to Tesla about the other parts of the magic wave he had discovered, he would have given us cheap energy. I delivered a paper in Ottawa, Canada, where I gave the actual mechanism by which his amplified transmitter, his magnifying transmitter, actually worked. There are over 1,000 papers in the scientific literature that show that mechanism is real. It would have worked, and he could have given the world cheap energy. You could not, however, have had a power meter on that you sell it to folks. They could have tapped it cheaply and freely just for building the antennas and putting in the taps. And so the powers that be suppressed Tesla and Tesla's work because of the fact that he was going to get the power meter off of your power. He would have given you cheap energy and cheap power and clean power. He did give you radio, he gave you fluorescent lights, he gave you the things that made motors and generators, and he gave you the electrical 20th century. He would have given you a lot more had we listened to Tesla and funded him.
Tesla's advanced knowledge of the laws of electricity and magnetism, combined with his ability to put them into practice, gave him foresight into the next generation of electronics with regard to light and its structure. He was an ambitious man who was a great favorite in society, where he would show a light bulb in his hand burning without any electrical connection. Tesla said, "I could only achieve success in my life through self-discipline, and I applied it until my wish and my will became one."
He was a magnificent genius, and had he been funded to continue his work, the world would have been 100 years further in science than it is today. Here, some 80 years later, so to speak, after the collapse of his magnifying transmitter, and here we are trying to rediscover what Nikola Tesla was doing right at the turn of the century. And so we're almost a century behind where we should be. That's the importance of Nikola Tesla.
Progress is the process of moving forwards and not backwards. It is a combination of achievement and forward vision which serves its creator without fear of unforeseen consequences. There can be no progress if these rules are not observed.
People always back something they call progress without giving it a proper definition. I think technical innovation is not progress by a long way. Technical innovation can only be progressive when it is combined with a step in the direction of humanity, and it's just that I miss. Nuclear power stations are not progress. Because of this monstrous gigantomania in the buildings and the walled-up concrete areas and the risks, you are here playing with a fire that can't be put out. And the risks are extremely inhuman. And so these gigantic buildings are put up, and especially the military-industrial building complexes, which in the end all lead to the scars of this pseudo-progress practically destroying the natural foundations of human life. And so that the whole of society becomes, in effect, a society of chaotic beings that will lead to global suicide.
Real progress is being made in a laboratory in Canada. Here, the full significance of the physical laws of light and space have become clear to John Hutchison, and he is utilizing this knowledge to produce cause and effect experiments which lead to an understanding of the harmony of nature. Science, in harmony with the laws of nature for the good of mankind, will hold great values in many fields and would advance its course beyond our present comprehension. John Hutchison has been working in the areas of electromagnetic forces and the changes in the molecular structure of materials for many years. He has in this time achieved a breakthrough in anti-gravity knowledge, providing spectacular examples of heavy objects flying through the air without any visible signs of propulsion. He has also made amazing discoveries concerning the alteration of compositions of materials by subjecting them to a form of electromagnetic bombardment. Hard metals would turn into soft, rubbery objects, proving that any substance could change its form if the science involved was understood. Hutchison is one of the growing number of scientists who realize that by applying physics to the natural laws of the universe, science will be taken into areas previously unrecognized. John Hutchison's achievement will give science a new momentum as it moves into the next century.
Some of the work of the lone inventor, John Hutchison in Canada, Vancouver, Canada. Hutchison takes two Tesla coils and essentially puts in the center of them a target, which in every target has certain nonlinearities, and then blasts away with these two coils at them. Basically what he establishes is an electromagnetic fighting itself, electromagnetic forces fighting themselves. And gravitational force is made when, a gravitational potential is made when electromagnetic forces fight themselves to a draw, when, in other words, the gradients become zero. The gradient vectors or the resultants become zero, but the two forces are still in there slugging it out. All the energy is still going, the work is still going, but it's trapped locally. That's internal energy. That's what gravity is. And the Whittaker paper tells very well how to do that. So when John got things just right, he didn't have control of it, absolute control, but he bored in there with persistence, and when he got things just right to get the forces to fight to a draw, and there was the right nonlinearity in the target, he would have levitation of things even 64 pounds. He would also, another thing you do with such a thing is you cause the magnetostatic potential to change a vacuum. In other words, that's pole, an unfortunate name in magnetism. But in other words, it causes deposits of monopoles inside materials such as metals. And you'll literally have the monopoles repel each other, and you'll have the explosive separation of metals into all kind of grains and structures according to the waves in the Tesla coils that you're bombarding it with. And so he produced magnificent breaks, Hutchison did, in metals and splits as if it were Venetian blinds. And another thing it does, since this stuff comes from the nucleus out, it doesn't go through the electron shells. Its medium is the nuclei. What you have then is you have changes in the atomic nuclei, which result in lattice changes. You have the production of alloys, which cannot be made in this world with normal processes. And some of those alloys appeared in John Hutchison's work as a result of that kind of bombardment. Another thing you have is once charged with scalar radiation, the nuclei then continue to discharge over a long period of time. And so the material continues to change, alloy form and so forth, over a period of even a year. And you had those changes occur in his work also. He was reproducing and has been reproducing some of the work of Nikola Tesla, and even some of it going further. But that's what he's doing. What he's doing is real. And unfortunately, most people regard John Hutchison as being a little bit off and not really understanding electromagnetics and not really understanding a Tesla coil. Nothing could be further from the truth. He's doing the real electromagnetics. He's doing the kind of electromagnetics they don't know anything about. He's doing electrogravitation and real Tesla work.
The technology that we are aware of is quite staggering anyway. But then there is also the technology which the governments are putting together, which we don't know about. And they've obviously got their own reasons for their secrets. But if we had any comprehension of how advanced this technology was, then I think people would then begin to realize that even our own people are far more advanced than they would believe. And once they can realize how wrong they were in this direction, then they can start to wonder, well, if we are as advanced as this and with no idea of this, is it not feasible that there is something out there which is more advanced than this? And perhaps all the technologies which are being put together at this moment in time are catching up on our alien friends, which I very, very much doubt. But I'm sure that is the reason this technology is being put together. You've got to realize that things are not always as they seem. And once we can get out of this thinking, out of this box we're in, that there is something more than what we are being taught, what we have learnt. There are things outside the scope of this. Then I think you'll begin to see the potential for people from out there visiting us. And not just now, not newly visiting us, but have been visiting us for hundreds of years.
I oscillate between pessimism and optimism. I mean, there's every reason to be pessimistic about the future. I mean, every sign of disaster is coming upon us ecologically, population explosion. You know, there's so many reasons why the present system can't continue. So the real question is whether humanity becomes extinct, civilization collapses, whether that happens, or whether somehow we go through a crisis and emerge into some new relationship with each other and with the natural world and with the spirit that lies behind the natural world and works within it. And I'm an optimist, so I hope that sooner or later we'll arrive at this new state of harmony. But I don't think we'll arrive at it just by waking up one morning and finding it's happened. I think that we'll have to go through a crisis first.
We physicists have kind of forgotten what we're all about. Einstein one time said that the whole purpose of science is to awaken the cosmic spiritual feeling. And we scientists are among the last to embrace that.
The cosmos is the energy and lifeblood of all things. Man is part of this energy and therefore holds the potential to achieve literally anything. Science is in the early stages of attuning to this enormous reservoir of knowledge, where anything is possible. Our comprehension of such things is limited only by the painful realization of change. The idea of a living cosmos is such a new concept that we have not accorded it its rightful place.
Contrary to the popular view, it can be shown and conclusively proved that that has an internal structure of incredible order and beautiful order. It's filled with electromagnetic waves going in bidirections. Pick a frequency, there's a wave going in one direction and a wave in the other direction. The wave that's going backwards is an anti-wave. It's a time-reversed wave. And the vacuum is structured, this potential, a vacuum is just potential is all it is. This potential is filled with a harmonic series of these waves. And so it structures spatially by bidirectional wave sets, and it structures vertically in terms of harmonics. Now, if you then invoke this structure, and you do that with a nonlinear material, and you put in one wave in the nonlinear material, that material will take from the vacuum that excess structure because it turns everything into a potential, and it will put out multiple frequencies and harmonics. That's what nonlinear materials do. Interestingly enough, if you take time-reversed waves and put in those harmonics, when they back up through, they will restore one wave. You can gather the energy and collect it and integrate it together and produce a single thing of much greater energy and lower frequency. And so what you have is the vacuum structures in frequency and spatially, and the connection are waves. And by the way, these waves do not have to move at the speed of light. They can have much greater velocity. Now, the importance of Whittaker's work is that he showed that if you were to take sets of waves that you made on the bench, you made a wave and its anti-wave, and you made the harmonic and its anti-harmonic, you'd have to have at least one interval. In music, we would call that an octave, from C to the next C, for example. If you had at least one octave or one harmonic interval, you would then have a structured vacuum. Now, you can build such sets as these any way you wish to, and each one of those sets is a special form that you can build on the laboratory bench. There is a set, for example, that contains the electromagnetic parts that generate typhoid. That's Kazanashev's work, and that's Kazanashev's death photons that have been shown to carry death and disease. That work has been duplicated in West Germany, or Germany now, and also has been duplicated in Australia and here in the US. It also explains the work of Antoine Priori, who built a machine under the proper scientific auspices and under rigorous testing on lab animals, which cured cancer and leukemia almost 100%. Some eminent French scientists worked with him. It's still in the French medical literature. It was real, it existed. It was squelched. But what I'm saying is, if you use the Whittaker approach, you can now, for the first time, understand how Priori's device worked, because that's what it did. And he used a rotating plasma to make his phase conjugates. We didn't even know about the phase conjugate in those days. Today, we know that one of the things plasmas do under the right circumstances is phase conjugate, or time reverse. And he showed that you can cure cancer, leukemia. You could just as easily set a pattern that would cure AIDS. He showed you could clean out clogged arteries. You could change the immune system, increase the immune system, bring it back up, which would be very valuable to AIDS patients, for example. For every disease, there is a pattern which causes the disease in this structure. For the cure to every disease, you simply take its pattern and time reverse it, and you get the precise electromagnetic antidote. You then put that inside a potential, as Whittaker showed how to do, and you treat the body with that, which is like very you know, like normal electromagnetic radiation. It's not ionizing radiation. It's not nuclear radiation. Expose them to a rippling magnetic field, for example, with these embedded in the field, and you cure the disease. And that's the kind of medical treatment we ought to have, not this cut them and burn them and poison them type thing that we have now, and many of them are still dying with cancer and leukemia and AIDS. It would take about 3 years. It would take a team of about 30-something people, facilities and so forth, about 3 years, about $20 million a year to deliver the ability to do that kind of electromagnetic treatment.
Our knowledge grows rapidly in almost every discipline. Conservative scientists in the past, or if you like, futurologists, have always been too cautious, too conservative in their estimates. We know that there's a turnover every 5 years of doubling our knowledge, with the consequence that we have a completely different view on the world. Most people can't even keep up anymore with the advance in science. They have problems understanding modern computer science, cybernetics, biogenetic engineering, or nuclear physics. We talked today about great unified models of the natural forces. The man on the street can't keep up, and he is only superficially informed about new aspects. We don't know what will happen in 20, 50, 100 or 1,000 years. However, there's one thing we do know, that whatever happens in the future, science will have advanced far more than we can possibly think of today. And no imagination, no fantastic model that we may produce today will justifiably come close to the actual advance in 1,000 years.
We really do have, right now, available to be born a completely new and drastically extended and drastically more capable physics, which unfortunately 4 nations of the world have weaponized but kept secret from their citizens and from the rest of the world. And what I am saying is that it's high time that instead of just using this in secret to build more weapons to kill more people and hurt more people or control more people, what we need to do is bring this out in the open and let's use it for the positive benefits, to heal people, to give them cheap energy and clean energy, to clean up the biosphere, to clean up our whole act, to be able to heal all these diseases and this kind of thing.
I think the first point in overcoming any difficulty or any problem or any crisis is to have the faith that something better is possible. Without faith, without trust that it can work out better, without the vision of something greater, it won't happen. So I think we have to have some kind of vision, some kind of faith. In traditional Christian terms, this is the idea of the kingdom of heaven. And most visionary schemes in the West are under the influence of this Judeo-Christian model, that at the end of history there'll be a new era, a new dawn, a new age, the kingdom of heaven, a utopia. Well, I mean, there are many different ways of formulating this. We have to think this. I think it's built into our whole civilization. It's very difficult for us not to think this, or at least if we don't think it, we despair.